We've been doing a three-part format. You get a local speaker who introduces a video, and then you get a video or a film, and you get a discussion afterwards. Usually it'll be moderated by whoever gives the first speech. So help us set up and publicize these events, and let's get a big ruckus going here in Kirkland. Tonight is kind of an experimental program because instead of one video, I'm going to show a series of clips from 5 or 6 different documentaries. So the topic is military-industrial complex. Actually, the military-industrial congressional complex, the MIC, M-I-C-C. The MIC is a real thing. It's not like a way of looking at things. It is not a Rorschach test where it's you can see it one way or the other. And it's not a conspiracy theory by the Democratic Party or by a Communist Party or anything like that. A MIC, a military-industrial congressional complex, is composed of a nation's armed forces and its suppliers of weapons and supplies and its national legislature or Congress. It is a sector of the economy. It's no more complex than other sectors of the economy, like transportation, education, or medicine, or whatever else may be. The MIC really includes the entire network of contracts and relationships among the individuals inside of the institutions, as well as the Army, the corporations, or the Congress. And this sector is intrinsically prone to the problem of special interests, which afflicts all human organizations that have any degree of centralized power. The people in organizations having large costs or large benefits at stake in any decision, they work much harder to influence the decision than the rest of the population. And so this results in a systemic ongoing transfer of economic resources and political advantage from the general public to special interests. And this is something that we need to work on. It's a pattern that's in all governments and all corporations, and it really is one of the crucial unresolved problems of humanity. Okay. And it's called the problem of concentrated benefit and dispersed costs. But my purpose in speaking to you tonight is to put an end to war. War is a very bad deal for most people, and far more people are harmed by war than benefit from it, from militarism and so forth. So putting an end to war, I think, is a realistic goal. It is the propositions of tough talkers like the American Legion and the VFW to establish why their idea is not crazy and unsound. So I never let anybody tell me that war can't be abolished. It will be abolished quite likely in this century, and actually it has been abolished. It's been illegal since 1945. Yet the U.S. has initiated dozens of wars since 1945. The U.S. military and its war industries have killed millions of people, innocent people, in these wars. And the wars didn't appear out of nothing. Nobody attacked us. The wars were started by these organizations of people in pursuit of their special interests, which is generally money. So the MIC is a primary cause of war. The MIC is one of 2 causes of U.S. wars, actually. The other cause is the beneficiaries who make money. For example, in Iraq, you have obviously the oil interests and banking interests and some foreign influences. They use the military, the U.S. military, to smash the Iraqi government and to make money. These people are not the MIC. They're the beneficiaries. And domestically, we have other beneficiaries. The plutocratic wealth are primary beneficiaries of any war or cataclysm because they always get a vast monetary bubble. They always get a spectacular profit on their lands and their financial assets from the printing of money, which always accompanies any major war. Bigger the better for them. And Bush has filled their vaults with $3 trillion of new government bonds in the last 5 or 6 years, which they paid for by simply printing the money unearned out of the Federal Reserve's banking system, their private banking system, allowing further multiplying of the bank reserves into an even more massive bubble, the same as Reagan's military spending and the deficits related to it, which created a housing bubble in the S&L crisis. We're going to focus on the MIC. The main result, the main goal of the MIC is neither to create war or avoid war. The MIC is not really that intelligent. It's just a business. It's an evolutionary adaptation, actually, by a collection of different people on the handout over on the table there, which I urge you all to have a look at. So these different unrelated groups of people in the legislative and among the population have, over time, developed into collaborations that don't have any central point to make it illegal or shut it down. And the MIC is a unique industry, really, since it doesn't have any customers that it has to please. It just sits there spending $1 trillion per year, as you can see on the War Resisters League pie chart that comes out every year. They waste the labor of at least 5 million civilians and 1.5 million active duty military without creating anything useful to anybody. Waste enormous amounts of oil and energy, pollute the environment, and so on. So it really is an incredible feat of stupidity, as Fred Miller often says. Now, what the hell do we care about the waste involved in military spending during peacetime? I don't. You know, the cars and the freeways, all the buildings downtown, the skyscrapers full of people who are shuffling financial papers and other things are just as useless as the military complex, and as long as they aren't killing people. You know, so I think that I'm more concerned about the wars. And I care about the MIC because it's a cause of war. It's, you know, so it isn't that they're just sitting there neutrally consuming resources. Actually, they are a cause of war, indirectly. They don't directly start wars, and I don't think even consciously want wars. You know, if you talk about the Pentagon or the corporations, they just want the money. But it is simply impossible for them to continue their giant complex, their $1 trillion segment of the economy, without maintaining war ideology. That's the problem. The culture of militarism around Fort Lewis and other large bases is a living example of that. The culture is prevalent around all the war industries and around all the major bases around the country and on the media. So first of all, military training imposes a whole festering ideology of domination and so forth, and this ripens with the passing years, as we'll see in some of these Thomas Barnett videos, as the members brood on all their rationalizations and all their justifications for their wars. And then they attack and intimidate anybody who criticizes their ideology, which is fairly common if you think about it among all the other people, whether religious or whatever. Now, the Congress also perpetuates wars because in order to profit by re-election, it has to give war speeches to the public. It's not really necessary to be re-elected that a politician supports war and militarism. That's not necessary. In fact, the public doesn't even want to hear about war and militarism. Most of the public doesn't want war and militarism. But politicians have to give those speeches in order to gain the money and the support of that 10 or 15% of the population who are paycheck patriots, the people who are actually in the military-industrial congressional complex. And as far as the war itself, that's just a byproduct. It's an externality as far as the politicians are concerned. It's outside of their responsibility. So, you know, I worked 20 years as a CPA and in corporate accounting and finance. I apologize for this. And what we know in the accounting business is transactions. The military-industrial complex is a web of economic transactions. I don't think the world is driven by psychology. I don't think the wars are driven by power lust, the revenge, the racial hatred, the ideology even. I think those things float along. They're allowed to float on the material economy. Boeing and Lockheed Martin would instantly stop producing bombs and so on. They'd quit bribing politicians. Even the military, they'd quit in 5 minutes if they weren't getting paid. So the idea that they're doing it for patriotism or that there's some great thing at stake or they're defending the country is easily disproven by simply cutting off their paycheck and just ask how long they'd stay there. In fact, ask why they joined the military. This is thoroughly reviewed for many years by the military for recruiting. If you Google around the internet for the phrase propensity to enlist, there are youth attitude tracking surveys and many other surveys done by both universities, by Madison Avenue think tanks, advertising companies. And what they've done is they've analyzed and asked so many thousands of teenagers why they join the military. And they join so they can get their career started. They join because they're out of money and they need to get a paycheck coming in. They join because they've gotten married and they've got a lot more expenses and they don't have any solutions. And so then they go in the military, basically for money. So what I'm going to do now is just stop talking. I've got way too many pages here. And there's 3 sets of videos I'm going to show you. I'll start the videos now. Thanks for your attention.